This video is brought to you by Roll for Combat and The Fall of Plaguestone, an official Paizo actual play podcast. Join Prue, Cade, Brixley, and Celeste as they band together to save the village of Plaguestone from utter destruction. Listen now to The Fall of Plaguestone at rollforcombat.com. Hey everybody, today I have for you a first look and preview of Guns and Gears for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Two quick notes before I get too deep into this. First, I should let you know that I was provided a PDF copy of this book by Paizo, and second, I don't want this video to be confused with a full review. So let me say up front, I've only just now received the book, and I have not yet had an opportunity to see any of its contents played out on the game table. So what follows will be a first look at its contents and my initial first impressions. Guns and Gears is 242 pages from cover to cover and retails for $49.99 in the US. The PDF version may also be purchased online for only $14.99. The book begins with an introduction that addresses some of the common concerns about introducing firearms and technology into a fantasy setting. There will be those who embrace this sort of thing, but there will be others who prefer their fantasy worlds to stick to swords and sorcery without adding rifles and robots to the mix, and that's okay. It's also okay to add just a little of the book's contents to an existing game instead of all or none of it. The introduction explains that Guns and Gears is broken up into 3 distinct sections, each of which can be considered to be its own small mini-book. The first of these mini-books covers the Gears portion, the second covers the Guns portion, and the final mini-book is a gazetteer that discusses where within the official setting of Golarion you're likely to find these elements. Organizing the book in a modular way should help GMs to pick and choose how much of the book they want to allow in their games. Some GMs may only want to add clockwork inventors to the games without also allowing firearms. Others may like the idea of noble pistol-slinging paladins like Roland from the Dark Tower, but don't necessarily want to open their game up to robots and higher science. The introduction goes on to tackle another often voiced concern, which is what's the point of having a sword when you can have a machine gun? The book says that all of the firearms are treated as examples of early black powder weapons and promises that they are balanced with the other weapons of the game, but again, I have not had the opportunity to put that to the test yet. The book's first chapter tackles Gears characters. Here we find the first of 2 new classes introduced in the book, the Inventor. The Inventor feels very much inspired by Edgar and other machinists from Final Fantasy. Each inventor has their own unique device that they created and only they know how to use. These are referred to as innovations, and Guns and Gears provides 3 options for players: armor, construct, or weapon innovations. Each of these options have their own special features and can be sort of overclocked for additional benefits at the risk of exploding. As the inventor levels up, they have breakthroughs and discover new and exciting ways of using their personal innovation. This chapter also introduces a new rare ancestry, the Automoton. Not to be confused with androids, automatons are centuries-old constructs imbued with the mind and soul of an ancient Jiskin soldier or scholar. These are not mass-produced robots, but instead are as unique and individual as any other living creature. And as living creatures, they do not have the usual construct immunities and are affected by anything that affects a living being, including positive healing. And automatons do not need to eat, drink, or sleep, but do need 2 hours of rest each day, during which they remain awake and aware of their surroundings. Many of the automatons' feats deal with enhancing their bodies, like claws, magical camouflage, eye beams, and the like. This chapter also provides a wealth of new gear-inspired backgrounds and also rare backgrounds like the ones we saw in Secrets of Magic. I won't list all of them, but you can see them on the screen here. Just keep in mind that the rare backgrounds are not intended for all games, and so you're going to want to get permission from your GM before you pursue any of those. The Gears portion of the book also provides several new archetypes. The first is Overwatch. These are battlefield tacticians who use gear that enhances their vision so they can keep watch over and direct their allies during battle. Next are Sterling Dynamos, who are attached to special clockwork prosthetics. Next are Trapsmiths, and they're pretty much what you would expect. They're experts at crafting and setting snares. Trick drivers are experts at piloting vehicles, and vehicle mechanics not only repair but enhance vehicles to new heights. Chapter 2 of the book is all about new gear-themed equipment. The new items presented here range from the fantastic to just plain wacky. Some of the gear here even feels like it was pulled straight out of an old James Bond movie, such as the Dart umbrella. This chapter also introduces a new kind of consumable technological device called gadgets. Much like elixirs and mutagens are to alchemists, you don't have to be an inventor to use gadgets, although they are especially well suited to do so. An example might be blast boots that allows their user to jump without having to stride first. After the gadgets, the book covers siege weapons, which honestly I was surprised to see here. I figured siege weapons would fit in better with a book about mass combat rules and cover everything that goes into sieges, but Guns and Gears does provide a basic foundation for rules and several common examples including ballistas, battering rams, catapults, and trebuchets. Guns and Gears also introduces enhanced mobility devices for physically disabled characters. This includes several new wheelchair options, including frog chairs that let the user not just roll for movement but also jump over pits and other obstacles as well. And then Chapter 3 kicks off the second mini-book of Guns and Gears and is all about Guns character options. The most notable new addition here is the Gunslinger class. Unsurprisingly, gunslingers are ranged combat experts but do not strictly wield firearms. In fact, some quote gunslingers never touch a gun and instead are experts with crossbows. Gunslingers each choose a particular fighting style to specialize in called ways. Guns and Gears offers 4 ways to choose from. Way of the Drifter mixes ranged and melee combat skills. Think of pirates who fight with a cutlass in one hand and a black powder pistol in the other. Way of the Pistolero focuses on fighting with pistols, while the Way of the Sniper focuses on longer range combat with rifles. And last, Way of the Vanguard is for heavy weapon experts who use explosives to clear a path for their allies. Beyond the new class, this chapter also presents even more new backgrounds, uncommon backgrounds, and rare backgrounds, several of which seemed less tied to guns and firearms so much as to a Western theme, such as the saloon entertainer. The Guns chapter also introduces new archetypes: Beast Gunner, Bullet Dancers who are sort of gun-wielding monks, Demolitionist, Firework Technician, Pistol Phenom, Sniping Duo, which is a sniper who uses a partner to serve as a spotter, Spell Shot, a class archetype for gunslingers that adds magic to their firearm use, and Unexpected Sharpshooters who turn clumsy good luck into precise shots. Next, Chapter 4 is all about new guns-related equipment. Just like with the previous section about Gears equipment, this chapter is roughly 40 pages full of new options. After a discussion of firearms and their place in a fantasy setting, the chapter provides stats for each gun and an explanation of misfires that can occur if the gun is not properly cleaned once per day. Generally speaking, the stats for firearms are not inherently more powerful than existing ranged weapons, but where they really shine is with critical hits. Many firearms have the fatal trait, allowing them to do extra damage on their crits. After discussing conventional firearms, the book dives into the more fantastical guns of Galarian. Beast guns, for example. These weapons use magic instead of black powder and are forged from the harvested remains of monsters. For example, the Petrification Cannon. This is a double-barreled musket crafted from the remains of a basilisk so that it also is capable of casting flesh to stone. This chapter also introduces cobbled firearms, which are special guns crafted by goblins that are prone to misfires, and the book also provides rules for combination weapons that meld 2 weapons together. This basically allows you to use one of Final Fantasy VIII's gun blades. The guns section of the book continues by adding more siege weapons as well, specifically those that use black powder like cannons and mortars. The 5th and final chapter of the book is 40 or so pages of lore. It dives into where the tech comes from, why it is used there, and to some degree why this technology has not spread and become commonplace elsewhere in the world. The chapter explores several locations, giving each of them about 5 pages worth of space to flesh out their history and their relationship with this technology. This includes the dwarven fortress of Dogan Hold and the industrial city of Alkenstar, each of which has embraced technology as a means of survival within the Mana Wastes. Similar attention is paid to Absalom, as the so-called center of the world houses technological wonders such as the Clockwork Cathedral and Bree's most prominent temple in the city, the Gallery of Innovation. The next featured location is Arcadia, home of beast guns and sky medals. I may be wrong, but I think this may be the most detailed information we've received about Arcadia in 2nd edition so far. The next section covered is the ancient Jiska Imperium, a long-lost and almost forgotten empire that once ruled through mighty golem armies. Although Jiska itself was defeated long ago by the Osirian armies, remnants of its lost technology occasionally resurface today. Next, a section devoted to the Shackles dives into the role of black powder in piracy and naval battles. And a write-up of Tian Sha and Vudra gets into the invention of black powder, from simple fireworks to explosives and rockets, and how they are embraced in these faraway lands. And the final section of the book is dedicated to Usulov and the recent discovery of Stasian technology that uses electricity to produce amazing effects. This very much seems to be inspired by Tesla coils and movies like The Prestige. As mentioned at the start, it's difficult to do a proper review without first seeing all of these new rules and new systems played out on the table, but my initial first impressions are largely positive. I very much appreciate the modular approach this book takes to dividing up the material between Gears chapters and Guns chapters, so GMs have an easier time picking and choosing what is appropriate for their games. I suspect the biggest draw for this book will be the 2 new classes. Inventor has very quickly become one of the classes I most want to play, and Gunslinger, it seems fine, but I'm not quite as excited about playing that as Inventor. Reading it didn't really strike me with the same wow factor that Inventor did, but that said, I do like that they incorporated crossbows into the class so that it can be used in campaigns that don't allow firearms. I don't really have any major complaints about the book, but will say that the inclusion of siege weapons strikes me as a little bit odd. They fit the theme of the book just fine, but it almost feels like I'm only getting half of the rules that I would want to have when running a siege. I would have preferred that siege weapons be saved for a more robust rule set that covers all the different stages and all the things that go into a siege. This book gives us weapons to attack with, but what about siege defenses? This isn't really a complaint, it's just an observation, I guess. Anyway, that should give you a pretty good idea about this book's contents. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions about this book, and as always, take care and happy gaming.